Good day, everyone. This is Kevin Off, CEO of Action Coach of Dallas Fort Worth, Action Coach of Texas. And we're here today with Nic Farish. Nic, thank you for investing in the business community by sharing your best practices, lessons learned as a business leader. Nic, take it away. Build us a little runway here on your organization and yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm super excited to talk to you and share what I've learned. And like I was saying to you before here, I'm excited to now join these conversations and learning amongst other leaders that you're going to have on after me. But my name is Nic Farish. I am the gaming director for a company called TBNR Productions. We are a YouTube production house. We have about 10 channels on YouTube. We get about 500 million views per month. And I run the creatives, I run the packaging department, the post-production department, and all of the pre-production on the gaming side. I've been doing that for about 4 years. I started out as an editor. I then moved up to editing supervisor. I then started sharing ideas. They moved me over to the creative side. And shortly after that, I was then promoted to creative director, and then finally now director of gaming, the entire division of gaming. So quite a lot of moves, and very, very excited about what I get to do.
What type of growth and thank you for that. What kind of growth has TBR Productions experienced, and what do you attribute that growth to?
Sure. So, it started out with one person. So Preston Arsement is his name. He was the face. He's the face of the channels, him and his wife, Brianna. And he started just playing Call of Duty. And from there, he saw an opportunity to grow that business, and he needed help. And so he looked outward to start the thing that he needed help with the most was editing. And so he hired his first editor, and then from there he grew that. But it's really tapping into what people are wanting to see. He was very good at recognizing audience behavior and hiring people around him that we're able to really dive into analytics on our content and see what people are wanting to see and continuing to provide that for the viewer or for the consumer, right? For me, a lot of my growth, because I started out as an editor and now moved to gaming director, for me, it was really understanding what my passion was. And so from there, I found a passion in editing and all of the things that you do in putting a video together behind the scenes. And so before I even found this position, I would spend all-nighters teaching myself on YouTube how to edit videos. And my kids would go to sleep, my wife would be asleep, and I'd be there on the computer learning how to edit myself because I loved it so much. And I found this position, and from there, hit the ground running. And further beyond that, then for me, my growth is attributed to really understanding and diving into what works for our channels, what our viewers want to see, what they want to consume of us, of the type of content that we produce for them. And so really understanding the behavior of what they enjoy and doubling down on that and growing upon that. And from sharing my analytics, the data that I found, it kind of promoted me to the position I'm at now.
Phenomenal. Well done. As you mentioned earlier, 500 million views per month. That's significant.
It's crazy. It's, when you work here too, it's easy to forget that it's not just a number. These are people that are watching, and it's, you have quite a bit of influence. And so with that influence, of course, there's a lot of responsibility with it. So it's important to us that we are delivering a message that we care about, and because it impacts the videos we do impact a lot of people. And so, yeah, when you work here, like you see millions of views, and it's very easy to forget that they're not just views, they're actual people.
My friend, that is a very valuable point. Business community. Do you mind expounding upon that a little bit? I'm going to go off what we're going to talk about.
Sure.
Together. That's critical.
Sure, absolutely. So, in any business, I'm sure, you could speak a lot more than I can, but in specific to what I'm a part of, when we're making content for the masses, we are very specific to about the demographic that we are creating content for. And all of those views are individual people that have, given their time to invest in us and trust in us to provide them a sense of value, something that they're going to better themselves for, or to just have a better experience and just feeling good about themselves after they consume our content. And so to us, that's a big responsibility. It's a big responsibility knowing that what we say and what we do is going to have potentially a very long lasting impact on the people that consume it. And it's not just the numbers. It really is a big response. I can't say enough the responsibility it is to have that big of an influence to that many people, because a lot of it, our demographics are between the ages of 8 to 13. So very young, a very young demographic, and it's shaping who they are, and that's a very a big growth stage for our audience, and so we want to make a positive impact.
I appreciate the positive impact aspect very much.
Absolutely.
And the word responsibility, that is so key for all of you who are listening and who are in the business community. It is our responsibility to guide our customers, our consumers, our clients into a positive direction.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well said. Well said. Would you like to add anything else in terms of what makes your business, TBR Productions, unique?
Sure. I would love to kind of touch further on that responsibility too. Like early on, what we discovered that our audience really resonates with is the value that we're providing to them. So, I run the gaming division. So we play and create content around a number of different things, but primarily it's Minecraft. And so kids, grandkids, whatever, whoever's watching this, if you're not playing I'm sure your kids have, but in that there's a lot of things you can do, right? And so we have early on identified what our channel was, and it is entertaining value. That's who we are. That's our identity for one of the channels, and the one that I'm speaking on. And for us, it's very important that we are always, in every content we're doing, we're delivering on that entertaining value to our consumer, to our viewer, so that when they watch our content, not only are they going to be entertained, but there's something that they can take with them and apply to their own entertainment when they are playing that game of Minecraft. Now they understand more about it. We're investigating different things you can do within the game that you may never have known before. Another one of our channels, the message is all about being yourself. It's a positive message about, the cool thing is to be yourself. And so in a society today, especially with the young demographic, when you have access to social media where you're constantly being reminded of what you don't have, and how maybe the grass looks greener on the other side, the message that we have really kind of rallied behind on that channel is the main talent, which is Bree in this case. She is thrown into situations where it's not necessarily the most favorable situation, and she goes through all of the trials and tribulations, ultimately to have a great rounded story at the end of realizing, wait a second, the thing all along was me being myself, me being proud of not being great at this aspect of the game. Or for instance, like we have one where we do very role play stories on that channel. One is a story about how she doesn't like who she is. She really doesn't like how she's perceived to be. And so she's like, you know what, I'm going to change who I am, and I'm going to be like all of these other people. So the whole video, she goes through and she spends the day as a different creator, ultimately figuring out that, wait a second, that isn't for me. Let me switch to this other creator. And then by the end, ultimately she realizes, you know what, at the end of the day, like, I just need to be myself. It's actually great that I'm who I am. That's the best person I can be, is just simply myself. And so, we really try to identify who we are and delivering that to our viewers so that they get a positive message from that.
Yeah, appreciate the responsibility and approach you take there. So as you think about the fact you get about 20 direct reports or folks who work for you within your division as a director, what have been your biggest learnings as an employer?
The biggest learnings for me, there's two different ones actually. The first one is you can't do it by yourself. I think one of the biggest misconceptions especially when you transition from a high functioning, high performing team member or employee to that leadership role, it's sometimes a very difficult transition, because you go from that person that is doing the things, that creating the impact, versus to that person who's now rallying the troops, being that coach for them, being that place of support, so that they have the tools and the resources to be those high functioning team players, those high functioning, high performing team members. And so the biggest area, and constantly learning, constantly growing in that side. But the biggest aspect is I can no longer do it myself. Now it's about getting the team to believe in the message, to believe in the why of what we're doing, and to get them excited and motivated to do that work in that high performing, high functioning way. The other thing I learned too, which was probably the most difficult thing for me, was team assessing, like auditing a team and knowing when it's time to move on. I think a lot of times as leaders, it's very easy to have a concern or a worry about, well, this individual, like I know them personally, because what's important to me is to build that relationship with your team members too. Because something that I've always believed in too is when you build that relationship, you can create a culture where they feel safe, they feel comfortable to talk to you about their issues. Whereas if you're building that culture that you're just barking orders, and you're more of like a dictator, then they're going to have a sense of fear. They're not going to do their job very well. So creating that culture is very important to me. So building that relationship, it's very easy sometimes to feel too attached. And so when a team member is underperforming, and this has become a behavior, and it's become more consistent, say you put them on a performance improvement plan and they're still not meeting the mark, it's making that decision to let them go. And it's a lot of times I feel as leaders, when we're doing that, there's a sense of uncomfortableness, right, to have that conversation. And ultimately what I've learned is that uncomfortableness where you try to portray it as, oh, I know, I'm worried about them. At the end of the day, you're just really just fearful for yourself. You don't feel safe to have that conversation with them, or you feel uncomfortable, I should say, to have that conversation with them. So it's a very selfish emotion you're having. So, removing that emotion for a second on that decision, and knowing ultimately it's best not only for you as a company, but it's the best for that individual too, because at the end of the day, they're not thriving here. Most times it's not due to a lack of effort or a lack of potential or abilities. They're just not the right fit here. And so cutting those ties and allowing them to go on their way, that means what you're doing is you're setting them up for a better future, because you're giving them that opportunity now to find that place that is more tied to their strengths, to their potential, that really fits their abilities like a glove. It just didn't work out here, but that doesn't mean the next place. You're giving them now that opportunity to find that next place. So in the past, in the beginnings, for me, it was really like latching on to them and worrying about their future. Like, what's going to happen? Like, I feel like I'm saving them, keeping them here, but ultimately it was hurting us as a company and hurting them.
And hurting all the other employees in the company.
Exactly.
Who are both a performance, culture, intent fit for your organization and the purpose of your organization.
100%.
Because the reality is, what I had the same journey. I've been in business for 4 decades now, so now you understand my age. And the reality is, what I found is that it actually was a relief. And it had to be positioned. Look, there's a better organization for you where you're going to fit well. It's going to be at your pace. It's going to be the right feel. It's just going to be a better fit for you. And starting today, it's your opportunity to go find that organization. And we wish you all the best, because there's a better fit. You'll feel a lot better there.
Exactly.
And position that way, because that is the truth. Just like you said, Nick. So well done on learning that. Very well done.
Thank you.
So, because we have, as leaders, you and I both have got responsibilities to the organizations we lead. You've got a vision that you lead. You have a responsibility to the customers you serve, to the team who's within, and the family members of the team that's within.
You're so right. Yeah, and I was going to say too, you touched on it, and that's such a great point, is the other employees that you have on the team that are witnessing and seeing this underperforming individual. And if they're seeing you continue to give them chance after chance, you may lose some of your high performing individuals, because you're only going to be as good as the ones that you allow to be here. And and so yeah, it's a great point that it has a negative effect too on other employees that are with the company of seeing that tolerance.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. So, you're a leader within the organization, you're a director. How do you find balance between your personal life and being a leader within the organization?
So hard. So hard. It's something that I still am always working on. I have 2 kids. I'm married. And as a father, the most important thing to me is my family, right? And as a leader, as a director, the work does not ever stop. I mean, you could work 24/7 and there's still things to do. But ultimately, what's important is to make those definitive decisions when you get home of even if it's you're creating windows. And this is something that I try to do for myself is weaponizing my calendar is what I call it. And actually, a mentor of mine before is the one that taught me that. I never heard that before, but I have designated times when I am leaving the office. It is time to leave the office. It's on my calendar. Everyone knows it. So if they're trying to get get a quick 5-minute meeting or a 15-minute meeting with me, they know that calendar, that time there, that is when I am leaving to go home for the day. And when I get home, it's important for me while my children are awake to spend that time. I'm putting my phone away so that it's not a distraction, because as we all know, if the phone is next to you in your hand, you're going to be looking at it. You're going to be constantly checking in on different things. We all now as a society have FOMO, failure of missing out, and we're not going to be able to not look at the phone if it's our hand. So I tried to do my best to put it away and spend that quality time, that undivided attention to my kids, to my wife when I get home, before maybe hopping back on the laptop and doing some more work in the evenings.
Thank you for that. Because the reality is one of the best presents, presents,
Mm-hmm.
that we can give our family, spouses, kids, in my case, grandkids as well, is our presence, presence. Be present with them,
So
not
good.
just in the same building called a house.
Yeah,
Be
absolutely.
engaged with, engaged in conversation, be interested in them.
Absolutely. Have you ever seen the movie Clicks? Or
Yes.
with, oh man, that's the one for me that as a father, as a husband, as someone who works very hard all the time, as I know you do too, that's one that resonated with me, that stays all the time in my head of if you're not careful, your whole life is going to pass by exactly in an instant. And so, yeah, that's a movie that changed my life, and made me very much prioritize the things that are truly the most important. And it's having to make those definitive decisions of putting it away so that it's not even a distraction.
One of my adult daughters, and maybe she was in college at the time, said, "Dad, you got to watch this movie." And I watched this, like, oh, man, that hit home.
Big time. Oh man. And then when he gets to the ends, and I know we're off track a little bit, but when he gets to the ends and he's that realization of hey, he missed it all, and it's over, and his kids now don't want anything to do with him, and his marriage fell apart, all of those things. It's just it's gut-wrenching to see that, because that could be anyone. That can happen to anyone if you allow it, if you allow your work, if you allow the things that aren't as important to completely take over. So for me, it's making those taking away those distractions, weaponizing my calendar, but then also really knowing what truly is important. Why do I do it? I do it for them. And but at the same time, when you're doing that, but you don't have you don't share those moments, you don't share your life with them, you don't have those moments where you're just spending time with them and you're not distracted while spending time. There's quality time, right? And it's not going to matter to your kids. They're just going to remember, oh, my dad worked. My dad worked all the time. And there's obviously importance to that. I don't want to discredit the fact that professionals work very hard for their families, but at the same time, yeah, the most important thing is that family at the end of the day.
Amen to that. Yeah, I've joined this I joined actually Coach about 18 years ago. About a month into it, our founder Brad Sugar said, "Kevin, remember, kids spell love Time."
Mm-hmm. Wow, wow, that's good. That's
That's the
real
time,
good.
the time we invest with them, not
Yeah.
spend, invest with. That's something as well. How do we invest the time? Make it an investment.
It's interesting. I know you have another question. I'm just gonna say this one
No,
last
good.
thing here. My wife and I. I've had other careers before the one I'm at here. I was a vice president of a company. Is a multi-million-dollar real estate company where we built homes. I was the designer. I did the floor plans, elevations, and the finishings. That company folded, right? And my wife and I made a decision that we wanted to pursue our passions. We sold all of our things, bought an RV with our 2 and 3 year olds, and then traveled for a year. And our thought process during that, number one, we're young now. Let's create these memories. Let's create these experiences with our family that we'll never forget.
Yeah.
Now versus waiting, oh, when we retire, we'll be able to do this. So we did it. And the interesting thing for me is my oldest son, and at the time, I think he was 4 years old when I asked him this question. I said, we came back home. It had been a year. We traveled, and I said, what was your favorite part about this? Like, what was your favorite adventure? And he said that his favorite adventure was just the time, like being together as a family. And I'll never forget that. We went to California. We went to all of these national parks. We went to Coronado or Hotel California, you know what I mean? And
Uh-huh.
we almost never left San Diego. And we went to Disney, all sorts of different places. And to him, the memory, the thing that held close to his heart was just that we were together. So right spot on with TIME.
Thanks for sharing that because it's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes as business leaders, whether it be owner or executive, we sometimes think that um, our our way of showing love for our family is providing for them. Now that's one of the ways, and there's the other piece: the time with, invested with, engaged with, in conversation with, in relationship with, that
Right.
they treasure, and that's what they remember.
Absolutely.
As for I got 7 grandkids. For me, I don't want to be the grandpa that the cool thing they remember is what the gift they got in Amazon.
Yeah.
It's the present they got. It's my presents at their birthday,
So
being
good.
there with them, engaged with, doing with. So, last question is: we talked about team a minute ago. What qualities do you look for in employees?
Passion. I look for passion. When I'm interviewing someone, I've had several experiences where someone checked off all of the boxes on experience, on qualifications, and then they came in here and they just weren't passionate about what we do and what we are looking to do. And they did not excel. They did not work here. Whereas I've had the opposite where they lacked the experience. They lacked the understanding of YouTube analytics, which is very important here at TBNR, but they were super passionate. And they're some of our highest performing individuals now today. And it all comes to that passion. I very much would rather work with someone who's passionate that I know is going to dive into the work that's going to, if they don't know something, because they're passionate about it, they're going to spend all the time needed that it takes to consume and understand and to learn, ask questions so that they are experienced. They do then get it. Whereas having a person that comes in and they aren't passionate about what we do, it's never going to work. And so the absolute, by far, main thing I look for in an individual is that passion. Sure, the other things are important, but the passion is number one. uh, what what will here at TBNR separates people that succeed and people that fail.
Like, thank you for that. And a key piece you mentioned, Nick, is passion in what you do and why you do it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah,
I recall that
absolutely.
when we interview staff,
No, sorry,
I
no, go ahead.
was going to quickly mention that when we work with clientele across Texas or around the world, we're in 80 some countries now, is that when we interview potential staff members, look at their skills and their will. The will piece, the passion for what we do, the alignment of purpose. Is it a calling for them to join our organization? That part is there or not.
Mm-hmm.
Those skills you can teach.
Yeah,
The skills you can teach.
absolutely. And the why that you mentioned too, I think that's not necessarily in terms of like what I'm getting to on the what I look for in hiring, but also too like learning to I've learned over time and something I'm sure you've known forever, but them getting on board with the why, right? In what we're doing, our mission statements, and a lot of times it comes down to empowerment and ownership of an idea. What's very important to me is to get my team members to understand and believe in our why, of why we're doing something, why we're setting the goals that we're setting, why we are creating the content that we're creating, and then also allowing them to have a say, and I want them to be included in a part of those conversations. Ultimately, me as that leader, I'm going to make that final call, but the more I include them in those decision making process, the more then they're going to feel empowered and have a sense of ownership of that idea, and they're going to give me way more efforts on whatever project it is that we're working on, way more enthusiasm and excitement when it's performing well, because now they feel a part of it. Whereas other times I've experienced when we have a team and we're just telling them this is the goal, we're not explaining to them why, they're not included in it, they're just hearing, and now you have to go and do. The effort is not nearly there when I give them that opportunity to be a part of it. But that why is
Amen.
so
Well
important.
said.
Thank you.
Certainly
Yep.
is. Very, very, very well said, Nic. Thank you. Nic, any last comments or points to the business community before we wrap up here today?
The only thing for me is, I think it's important too for us to understand, and something that I've realized, and honestly, it's been a very humbling experience to learn that as leaders, as business owners, the misconception is that you know everything. I think a lot of times people assume if you're in a leadership position, you need to know everything to be that leader, but it's quite the opposite. As a leader, you are now hiring people that have strengths where you have weaknesses, and it's being that coach, that place of support. But it's okay to admit and to for your team to know that I'm not the guy that knows all of it, but I'm going to ask the right questions. I'm going to make sure that I'm giving you all the opportunities to rise to the occasion. I'm going to be hiring people that are smarter than me, because ultimately it's going to build success. It's not from a place of ego where I want everyone to be underneath me, and their expertise needs to be underneath me because I have to be the alpha dog. No, for me, it's the opposite. I'm learning and growing, and I'm learning from my team members as they're learning from me, and we're growing each other, and it creates quite the positive work culture for us. It has. But yeah, I don't know everything, and that's okay.
It's interesting. Something I realized somewhere around 2010, 2011 timeframe was that the wisest people understand how much more there's yet to learn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not how little they know, because that's a scarcity mindset. An abundant mindset is how much more yet there is to learn.
Right. Absolutely. Well said.
So, Nic, I appreciate you. Thanks for pouring into the business community. And yeah, you're making a difference out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.